And everything. Hey everybody, we are actually live now. Thank you, Steve. I didn't catch the full name for the follow. We greatly appreciate it. So today we will be talking about a very important topic as Mateo gets back to his chair that I started without paying attention to the screen, um, about outrage culture and everything that entails. For those that might be joining us for the first time, this is Crowdsourced Politics. Crowdsourced Politics is a funky little Facebook debate community that spawned a podcast, and that is us. So we help run the group and we run this podcast. We cover a variety of topics to include foreign policy, domestic policy, internal government policies, law, and culture. And this is one of those topics that is culture focused.
This is a lot of stuff.
Oh dear.
I'm going to have to mute Art.
Yep.
So, today I am joined by Mateo DeGaulle and Nikki Adams
Hi there.
and Art Black, who appears to have been off screen because he just got home, but he is here with us. We are starting now because, well, we made you guys wait long enough. So, Nikki, what is your definition of outrage culture? We had some talking back and forth before the podcast started about what our personal thoughts and opinions were about it, whether or not it was real, and that sort of thing. So what are your thoughts?
In terms of a definition, my definition of outrage,
Yes. We'll go with that first.
I would probably hark back to when I was in high school when we had something called slam books, which was our own like mini outrage culture. Everybody in the whole country who's my age and maybe a little bit younger knows what they were. They were notebooks that were started. Every page had a person's name on them. You passed them around and everybody wrote down whatever they thought about what that person was, who they were, and nobody held back because it was all anonymous. So that was like a mini microcosm of outrage culture. Now it's writ large because of social media.
Okay. Guess that makes sense. Mateo, what would you define as outrage culture?
A pattern of behaviors that are, exhibited among a group, but usually it's characterized by insincere rage, umbrage, or indignation without personal accountability or commitment. So basically I'm going to get really mad about something and make it sound like it's my principles right now, but later on when inconsequential differences can be raised, I'm going to act like it's a totally different scenario, kind of like that.
So
like for me, it has to be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go for it. Finish.
For me, there has to be like an insincerity component to it. Otherwise, because being outraged is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with outrage at certain times. But when we're talking about outrage culture, it's more of a pejorative. And I think we're talking more about like the people who we would probably call insincere, or at least suspect of being insincere based on their actions.
Gotcha. Why would you say that it has to be insincere? Why is that a focus for you?
Just to differentiate it from completely justifiable and justified outrage. I mean, otherwise It's not a culture. It's just a human emotion that can be easily justified. That's like saying sad culture.
Woe is me. So basically like being emo versus being actually depressed.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. I guess I will go next. So the way I would define outrage culture would be somewhat similar to the way Mateo defines it, but I think outrage culture has... I think there's a bit of truth to the amount of outrage people have to these sort of things, because a lot of the outrage is coming from, we'll say, marginalized communities. It's coming from everybody. Like, don't get me wrong, Republicans outrage with the best of them. So do conservatives when it comes to certain things. Like the war on Christmas is an example of outrage culture, right? But with the advent of social media and the ability to kind of just dump everything anonymously online, you get this kind of performance piece to it where people are in order for it to be a cultural thing, people have to be seen and heard about it. So you kind of have like hyper. It's kind of like hyper outrage. It's like that sort of thing.
Yeah, you gotta like really mug it for the cameras because you don't want to be that plain Jane, just regular outrage. You got to be a ringleader or something to be noticed.
Correct.
But
That's very much a thing. Go ahead,
it's
Nikki.
designed to provoke. It's designed to provoke outrage questions, though, right? It's the way that we communicate in order to provoke outrage from others.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's more. I don't want to give. And this is probably the Libra in me. Look at me being all ooh, but I don't want to have too much outrage directed at the people that are participating in this, because honestly, I think everybody has had some sort of play within this where we've jumped to a conclusion about a particular topic. Great the great example of this is the Covington High School kids, right? Where everybody was like, well, not okay, so it started off with like everybody on the left was like, oh, these kids were, complete assholes, and they said build the wall, and they were being racist. And then the right kind of just was like, I'm not gonna touch this one. And then the full video came out, and then the right's like, look at these outraged liberals, and they're pushing their cultural proclivities on the rest of us. Like, how dare they? And it's this kind of thing.
They did stand up for a literal racial hate group, all because a man with a drum looked like a nice token for them.
Again, don't get me wrong, I understand what happened, but the point is that the people on the right didn't know anything about that before they started defending the kids, and the people on the left didn't know anything about that group either. They just saw this one little snippet video created out of an hour or two long thing that was propagated by a bunch of bots, because fuck us, right? And so everybody was basing it off of that. And a woman wrote an essay, said that she failed the Covington test. This was published in the Atlantic. And then you had people like Rush Limbaugh come out and do the performative thing that I was just going over. And he got the story wrong too. The woman was not a member of the Atlantic. She was like an independent person, didn't have any online presence on there. She was just kind of like, hey, I fucked up, and maybe we should not fuck up as much. But of course that didn't matter to anybody. So, I think that it's got that kind of snowballing kind of thing going on with it, where you just can't win in it, essentially. Art is back. Art, let me go ahead and unmute you, because there was a lot of background noise. So, Art, I don't, just to go over quickly, we were discussing our own personal definitions of outrage culture. So, what is yours?
Just a moment.
No problem. While Art gets to his notes or whatever, just FYI, all our live shows are live call-in shows. So when we get to the point where we start taking audience questions, you are more than welcome to join us on our Discord, which is what we're using to broadcast this to y'all right now. I'll drop the Discord link in the Twitch chat here shortly. And if you're on the page, there's also a Discord link on the About section too, but I know it'll probably be easier if I just go ahead and drop it.
Perfect. Okay, here we are. You gentlemen can hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly fine. Art, welcome back.
The lady can too.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. So one of the interesting things about like what we talk about with cancel culture is that it's something that it's an in-group phenomenon. So a lot of times people will complain about being canceled, so to speak, but really, if you're within a certain type of social or political or other type of group, this is really something where it's kind of a function of gatekeeping, where you have, for instance, somebody who's not really on the left or really on the right or whatever group you have. You can't cancel somebody outside the group. And in fact, expressing disapproval about somebody who's not within a group can actually benefit them. So you could have some leftist who might be disapproved of by the right, but that's not cancel culture. You can't cancel somebody from outside your own particular environment. So this is really something that's done to gatekeep people within a certain ecosystem. And this is usually something you see a little bit more on the left, who tends to be a little bit more focused on like ideological purity or kind of a rigidity of definitions. So that's just something that's kind of important to bear in mind. You do see it on the right sometimes in terms of like the Dixie Chicks are a great example.
Oh
These
yeah.
are people who expressed a very let's say outgroup kind of an opinion, and they suffered great rejection from their own fan base. The fact that their opinion was supported outside their fan base isn't super relevant. Like you kind of have this phenomenon where if your own fans reject you, that's canceled. Like that's something where their particular support base didn't like what they had to say and they become unpopular. And you could say freedom of speech, and this is an interesting thing that we often see with this particular phenomenon is people say, well, it's my freedom of speech to say that. Absolutely. You have the absolute right within the legal system in the United States to express a certain opinion, but that doesn't mean you're going to stay popular. And I think that when we talk about cancel culture, that's the important distinction is just to understand you can only be canceled by your own fans or your own supporters. You can't be canceled by people outside of that group.
For sure, and that's another thing with the way the language around this has evolved. We've gone from I read a piece recently about how they used to call it trashing, where I don't remember the woman's name, but she was a pretty well-known feminist theorist at the time, where she was talking about how different feminist groups tried to police their own through trashing and or thrashing rather. And this has been a thing that's been around for a long time. You had it with political correctness and all that sort of stuff, where you're trying to limit the bounds of acceptable discourse through, as Art was saying, with the whole, you can only have this really affect your own in-group. So I think that's a very important point to kind of focus in on, that it doesn't really work for outsiders. It's more of a means of policing inside in-group discourse.
Yeah, it's gatekeeping.
It's for sure it's gatekeeping, yeah. Give me 1 second, I just got a Facebook message. Oh, okay. So, what else? What else is an important thing to like really hone in on with this whole thing? I got some thoughts, and they're kind of pseudo philosophical, so I don't really want to go too deep into it right now. But what's like another good example of outrage culture, cancel culture, in action, where people were either like 100% wrong on it, or there was more nuance to it?
Back early in the days, like 2016, when Trump said, like, he came up with some weird ass conspiracy theory about Mexico sending people, and people immediately, like rabid dogs, jumped on it. Like, he's saying Mexicans are rapists. Like, that's an instance where they're just completely wrong. I mean, you could even find the fact checkers that the people who lean on every time will even say they're wrong.
Right.
Like, he said they're not sending their best. There is no way to interpret that as all Mexicans. He's talking about specific people being sent, which is crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a crazy conspiracy theory that's probably based off of like something he remembers from Cuba, Castro doing back in the day. But the thing is, he never said Mexicans are rapists. And this is like reality for a lot of people. Like, it's their honest reality that he said Mexicans are rapists, and you would never convince him otherwise.
He
didn't
say it. He didn't say that. I don't. Let me. I'm gonna have to correct this.
Yeah. No. So the exact quote is: when Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have a lot of problems, and they're bringing these problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Yep, exactly. That's the quote I'm talking about. Not sending their best. Obviously, we could tell what he's talking about. Even PolitiFact, they're not slouches, and everyone here probably respects them. Tim Kaine tried the same bullshit. PolitiFact was like, no, like it's not going to fly unless you're like in an in-group. It's really an in-group phenomenon.
Yeah, but
well, I mean, it's a super racist sentiment, but it's just parsed. I mean,
it's
the way
not a
that,
racist sentiment. It's some weird ass conspiracy theory
Okay.
about the government sending people. Like
No,
it's
no, no.
obvious.
So that's the problem.
yeah.
So this is one thing that I'm gonna have to correct a little bit here. And cancel you, Mateo. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. Fuck it.
Oh no, no.
Please
But
correct it though.
no, it's fine. So one of the things is that he specifically puts the group of Mexican immigrants in relation to the people that support Trump, and the people that in his mind, the people that support him and are normal, law-abiding citizens, or even immigrants, if they're because he doesn't really care about whatever, and so it was in that direct relation to that where he was saying, hey, most of them are this way. I assume some are good people. Like you don't like that's
No,
not
that's the
parsing out.
fallacy.
That's not
He's
parsing out
clearly talking about
language.
someone Mexico is sending. Unless you believe Trump believes every single Mexican who's come to America
No, I
was
think
sent by
Trump.
Mexico.
I think
His
Trump
language is
believes.
plain as day. People are taking like this is severe excess.
I
what
think
they're doing
Trump
here.
believes that most of the people that come illegally from Mexico are
We'll
criminals.
never know that for sure. We can't tell. But what we have are his actual words and his actual quote, and it's not what the rabid cult says it is. That is just undeniable. Even like I could find someone else other than PolitiFact. I could find another source that's
I
very
know.
popular among the
The
people who
issue
are going
was
to
that
put
he
static
was.
up against it.
The issue was that the people were saying that he literally said that Mexicans themselves are all rapists, which is categorically
Literally
not
said
true.
it, implied it, all the
Yeah.
things that they did. Any little slimy attempt that they tried to make to turn this into something it's not, it's wrong. Like you're just
Well,
not,
okay,
you're
but
not going to win this one unless you're surrounded by friends who already agree with you.
okay, but the parsing here is that people said that Trump said that all Mexicans are rapists. Trump did not say that. Like if you read the plain text of it, he's not saying that all Mexicans are rapists. What he's saying is that Mexico is sending people, and the people they send across the border are bringing drugs and crime, and they're rapists. So he's not saying that all Mexicans are rapists, but he's saying that the government of Mexico is, as a conspiracy, sending people across the border who are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're unloading the people that just like they don't want to pay for room and board in a prison or something. It's bullshit. It's a complete conspiracy theory. But that's what he
How
said.
could it be? How could it be conspiracy theory when he said they're
Because Mexico's
sending?
not sending people. That's why.
Because he said that though, Mateo. Those were his exact words.
That's why it's a conspiracy theory, because he's absolutely wrong.
No, a conspiracy theory would be he said. Maybe we're defining conspiracy theories differently, and it's conspiracy
Conspiring to send
theories.
criminals up north.
There is this assumption that among certain subsects that governments try to dump their problems on the U.S. when we have lax immigration.
Yes.
So that is a conspiracy
probably happened
theory.
somewhere before, but it's just not happening now. Like I want to be clear that Trump is totally wrong. It's Trump's conspiracy theory. The conspiracy is not against Trump. Trump is the one coming up with the crazy conspiracy theory.
Got it.
I mean, and Fidel Castro actually had this as an explicit policy for like the 70s
Correct.
and 80s was
That's why
to actually
Trump built this off of that.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the boat people that were sent across, I mean, was explicitly like he was trying to send either political dissidents or criminals or just any people he didn't want. He very intentionally loaded on boats and sent across to Florida, and that was a explicit policy of Cuba. Mexico is not doing that, but Cuba certainly did.
Thanks for the follow, JW String. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Mateo.
And that's probably the connection. Like Trump's almost like a child, so that's probably like he doesn't even remember Cuba. It just somehow clicked in his head. He's like, "Oh, Spanish people, I know what's going on. I've seen this before." Like it's some obviously stupid, bizarrely stupid thought process that he's coming to on this, but he still does deserve a fair defense here. Even bad people deserve a fair defense, I think, and this is one of the most unfairly attacked things he's done. Which, I mean, there's a lot of fair points to attack him on, too. It's like, you don't have to jump on this one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the issue is that people, what Trump said was extremely offensive in its own way. It just isn't offensive in the way that people said. Trump wasn't literally saying that all Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers. Like, that's not, even in the plain text, that's not what he's saying. What he is saying is crazy. It's just a different kind of crazy than what people are accusing him of.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no reason to, amp it up more than it already is. It was plenty good to just shit all over him for. Like, he was so stupid for saying it.
That's all.
Like, the man is actually stupid.
But and unfortunately, this is kind of the problem. I mean, I know we're kind of segueing away from the main point here, but Trump speaks inexactly. I mean, he speaks like a child and just throws out like really broad terms he doesn't really define, and then people will seize on that, and then they'll do the same thing. They'll kind of twist it even further. So they'll take the stupid thing that Trump said and they'll make it even stupider. And unfortunately, this is why you have politicians that are very guarded about their words. They're very careful because it's easy to misinterpret. Whereas Trump doesn't give a shit whether he's misinterpreted or not. He'll just say crazy stuff because he hopes people take it in different directions. Like he's trying to say a lot of things at once and then have plausible deniability. So who knows what he even really thinks, because he can deny anything. I mean, when you're inexact, it could really be what you meant or what you kind of wanted to say but didn't have the balls to say, or it could be a lot of things we just don't know. But this is why you have a culture of politicians that are very careful about their wording, and then this guy who just says anything, and then it could be anything, and people take it and go wild.
He's sure. Like the drunk uncle at Thanksgiving, except he doesn't even drink.
And I think
it's a dry drunk or something.
I think this gets into a little bit of the point that Natalie Wynn, also known as ContraPoints, got into with the whole idea of abstracting a person's point in order to make the person themselves evil. If people on this stream, they're watching the stream, have not watched it, Natalie or ContraPoints does a great video about cancel culture and outrage, and I highly recommend watching it, as she covers this point very much in depth. But to basically do a recap, essentially what happens is that people, in order to make someone be as evil as they possibly can be, they end up taking what they said, parsing it out into a thing that doesn't exactly mean the thing that they said, and then further abstract that to make the person themselves evil.
And it also goes in the opposite direction. People will do it, they'll tidy something up that someone they like said. So that's a side point. That doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I think that's
100% legit. Yeah, that's a very good point.
I don't know. I feel like okay.
No, I mean, and that's kind of when you have this weird, kind of fungible aspect of language where, depending on how you interpret something, it's even like Joe Biden's comment this morning, where his advisor was like, "Oh, well, it was a joke." Well, I mean, in a certain aspect,
good joke, Biden.
Well, right, but I mean, okay, I mean, in a certain light, yeah, I mean, he wasn't literally saying that if you support like Trump, like your skin color changes and you stop being black. Like he's not literally saying that. So there is like an abstract kind of a, comedic angle to it. So in a weird sense, I kind of get that it wasn't a literal statement, but like, that's a very charitable interpretation. And depending on if you like or don't like somebody, you can be very charitable with your interpretation, or you can be very ruthless with it. And that can drastically change the whole. Like, for instance, if Trump had said that, if Trump had gone out there as like some white dude and be like, "Yo, if you do that," I mean, he wouldn't say "yo," but hey, America, especially the coloreds out there, the blacks. If you do that, if you don't vote for the Trump, you're not the black. You're not, whatever. Like, if people would melt down, like people would lose their minds. Whereas with Biden, everyone's like, well, it's Joe.
I didn't say that though.
I'll do you one better.
Go ahead, Mateo.
All right, thank you. I'll do you one better. All Trump has to say is, "What do you have to lose?" And people will get outraged. I mean, it's just.
I don't know. That was one of the ones that got outrage on the left that I just didn't understand. Like, I get it. You're supposed to be against your political opponent. But at the same time, Trump's like, "Hey, nothing else has fucking worked. Try me." And that's appealing to some people, even though it's completely fucked.
What gets me the most about it is, though, that the people who constantly generalize black existence in America is like, you can't even wear a hoodie, otherwise you're in danger. All of a sudden, we're like, no, what are you talking about, man? Like, they won't go that far when it's like inconvenient.
Yeah, that's another
Meanwhile,
issue.
it's like, they can't wear N95 masks. They'll get shot up like they do every day on every street, every second. Like, it's just, you got to be careful. I had a better point, but I lost it, so I.
Your point was. I think your point was pretty.
I had something
well-received.
good to say. I could feel it, but it's gone.
You're getting a lot of feedback in the chat. Cryren61. is saying it does matter, Mateo. The devil is in the details, but the truth is the minutia and spoken language use is just as much of an art than a science.
Oh, that's actually fair. That's really fair. I mean, language is relative, so there's a lot of nuance that could either be missed or not. Who just joined?
Oh, hey, Dylan. Dylan's another one of the
Dylan.
Our regular podcasters. He's actually a founding member of the podcast. He will be joining us shortly. You see him pop in. We'll just give him a couple of minutes and we'll ask him about his opinions about outrage culture as well. I'm sure he has a ton of these.
Atari Hell should jump in and dunk on me.
Let's do it.
Just 5 minutes, Atari. Just 5 minutes.
No, but I think we should get a more in depth into this whole philosophical arrangement around outrage and the kind of things that it does. Art, I want to go back to the point that you made earlier about how it kind of confines what's acceptable discourse within an in-group. I've got some thoughts about that, but I would like to hear more of yours too.
Well, I mean, as far as like gatekeeping and all of that, one of the primary mechanisms that humans use to enforce social standards is shame. So you have a kind of a concept of whatever group you're in, you have certain expectations, either certain values or behaviors or duties or what have you, where in order to be like a valued member of that particular group, you need to uphold certain standards, however that's defined. So like an aspect of cancel culture would be, for somebody that is supposedly a member in good standing that has done something to go against the prevailing sentiment of, the consensus, let's say. So, Nikki?
No, I was giggling at Anthony doing his little dance back there.
Fair enough. That was a nice dance.
Oh, was I dancing? Jesus, I'm out of it. I guess. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Dylan, can you hear us? Can you say something so we can make sure we can hear you?
Yeah, I didn't hear you just fine.
All right, awesome. So we started off this live episode with each of us going over kind of what their own personal definition is of outrage culture, cancel culture, whatever you want to call it. What is yours?
Probably not a very controversial opinion. I would just consider cancel culture to be, or outrage culture, to be the private sector equivalent of free speech limitations, right? So it's voluntary reactions against certain types of speech, and that can include, things like cancel culture. I would also consider outrage culture specifically to be the righteous indignation portion of that.
Yeah, that's very much where I'm at too with that. I want to focus in more on the outrage aspect of it because I think that's a primary thing, whereas canceling is like kind of an expression of the outrage. It's like, hey, you're so bad, you need to go away. Whereas they first say, hey, I'm really mad at you, that sort of thing. And they being, honestly, everyone. Let's be real.
Dylan, I said it's insincere rage, umbrage, and or indignation without personal accountability or commitment. Does that sound all right to you or not?
Sort of, yeah. I think there's definitely some social reward to it. There's a virtue signaling aspect to it, which is big. Outrage culture is, it's a circle, right? It's people who are treated one way and kind of it's an in-group for having certain reactions to certain things, right?
Yeah, definitely. Art was actually touching on that too. So yeah, we're all kind of in the same boat.
Go ahead, Nikki. Sorry.
The Urban Dictionary defines it as, I'm sure Urban Dictionary, you'll notice, I'm trying not to be so boomer. When people play the victim card and bend over backwards to be as offended as possible when they really aren't, using hissy fits, political correctness, character assassination, and a false sense of moral authority, the outrager hopes to gain power and public recognition for their brave act of justice, as well as a sense of control over their meaningless existence. often
Jesus.
accompanied by demands, often accompanied by demands for financial compensation for their pain and suffering. For instance, why do we have warning labels that say contains peanuts on peanut jars and contains milk on milk cartons? Can't we just go back to using common sense instead of having to litigate everything? We only have the outrage culture to blame. Hashtag douchebaggery, hashtag playing the victim, hashtag victim complex, hashtag nanny state.
Wow.
So I
Hashtag
just want to
truth.
say that I think we can all agree that boomer is not an age; it's a state of mind.
Oh, thank you, Art.
Facts.
You're only saying that because you're a boomer.
Fair enough.
I think it's interesting that Dylan specifically mentioned that it is a circle, because when I was coming up with ways to describe this, I actually called it a reinforcing kind of spiral. So I want to like just read off just a little bit of the things that I kind of wrote, and I'm going to end up refining more in the future. So outrage also serves another useful function. It helps set the bounds of acceptable social behavior. By expressing outrage, we are able to signal to others that they have done wrong, and if they want to be accepted, they must correct that behavior. This is a useful tool in creating social groups and even to the level of the entire society. Let's call this process the spiral of social acceptability, and it works something like this. A transgression is made. Outrage is expressed about the transgression. The outrage gets amplified within a group as more people signal their preferences, virtue signaling as some call it. The person who made the transgression either corrects the behavior or leaves the group. The bound of acceptable behavior is established, the process repeats for the next one. And then this goes further into, this is described as a reinforcing circle, but I said spiral. Where and if it becomes a spiral is dependent on how both the transgressor and the outrage interact. If the outrage at the transgression causes cognitive dissonance, the transgressors are likely to double down, and doubling down can cause internal in-group fighting, which can lead to further fracturing. In addition to in-group fighting, doubling down can lead to a sort of, well, if that's not acceptable, what else is not acceptable discourse, which further creates alienation within groups. On the outrage side, there is what I would call social mission creep and performative one-upmanship. Since we are social creatures that desire to be seen, heard, and accepted by our chosen tribe or group, we are incentivized to further prove our own moral worth in the eyes of others. We cannot simply correct bad behavior, we must also show that we ourselves are not part of the problem, lest we be ostracized as well. We cannot focus on only the one transgression being corrected, but others tangentially related to it. Both these problems reinforce each other. Outrage that causes cognitive dissonance causes doubling down, which in turn causes more outrage, which causes fracturing. Outrage that is seen as disproportionate to the transgression causes outrage at the outrage that causes debate on what is and is not acceptable behavior, which then pulls more people in to show how they aren't part of the problem, which causes more outrage, and so on and so forth. Thus, we see a spiral into a narrower and narrower definition of what is socially acceptable until eventually a self-reinforcing group dynamic is created. No, that's a lot.
So I think that's pretty much a kind of a technical, almost academic explanation of how everybody interacts with each other online. I think that's pretty mainstream, even if it's presented in a kind of dense package.
Yeah, no, I could agree. I tried to go a little bit overboard with with what I just said, but I needed to like express kind of the ways that I kind of look at the entire online sphere with this, especially Twitter. Twitter is just complete utter trash. One of the things that I found in my research, and I'm sure others here would agree, is that or also know rather, is that for every moral indignation word that you put in a tweet, you have a 20% higher chance of having someone either like or retweet it. So I want to know your guys' thoughts about this whole process.
What do you consider a moral indignation word?
Something like, or phrase. So it'd be like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe that someone." Say again.
Kind of like white splain.
Sure, white-splaining, mansplaining, these things that trigger some sort of like in-group indignation at another. For Republicans, it's these Democrats are all trying to make us communist. So that's like kind of a thing where they're trying to paint an entire group of people as an other and showing some sort of moral indignation at them. liberals will tend to say something along the lines of Republicans don't care if your grandmother dies. We need to vote all Republicans out of office, type of thing. For Medicare for all or something like that.
I got a good real world example.
Go for it.
The very people who still to this day will say it was wrong to remove Saddam Hussein from power, who was a literal genocidal fascist who committed genocide on the Kurds, who will also say we shouldn't have left Syria because the Kurds will be slaughtered. That's kind of like the same thing.
I would say I don't know. That one's a little
That's
different.
Fake outrage, man. They're full of shit, man.
I don't think it's fake. There's a time and a place and a right way and a wrong way to do regime change. Let's assume that there is a such thing.
It was official U.S. policy since 1998. We needed it. That was never going to happen with Democrats. It was never going to be the good Democrats coming in and doing it. We had to wait for a Republican to actually.
Well, there was
I don't know what to call it.
There was things done under Clinton which escalated the things with Saddam. That was what.
All I'm saying is these people talk a good game about fascism and genocide when it's like politically convenient for them, but then all of a sudden when it's not, they ignore it. Like how many people here who are against the Iraq War even know about these genocides that happened? Saddam Hussein committed a couple of you do. Don't jump in on it.
Yeah.
But he committed the largest chemical attack on civilians ever. Yeah. His own people. Like this is beyond like
200,000.
Yeah, we haven't seen this scale of genocide since like the Third Reich, probably. I mean, Saddam was pretty conscious and he had concentration camps. He was pretty close to what we would call Hitler. And meanwhile, we're still harking back to Hitler when we want to call someone a Nazi.
Right.
Like the Ba'ath Party, they were complete fascists. Like what
that's
he did
totally
was
true.
a service to the region. This guy was, I mean, maybe he calmed down towards the end, but that doesn't change anything. It's not like, I committed murder 2 years ago. I'm cool now. This guy's a genocidal fascist. And if we cared about the Kurds, we would have loved getting rid of him.
So I think, yeah, no, you're good. I mean, I think that's a good example of kind of people talking about things that they don't really know much about in order to present themselves. Yeah, they don't, and that's most people, honestly. To present themselves within a certain way, within a it's peacocking.
Shit, sorry.
His camera goes down, and you just hear crashing.
And there's major foreign policy implications for this type of behavior, like. The people, like their opinions are based off some sort of weird, like in-group lore that's just not even true. Like, remember they were calling Bush the fascist. Like these people just did not care about accuracy or facts at all. They love probably saying, facts have a liberal bias, but when the rubber meets the road, it's just virtue signaling.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, this time around, we weren't really protecting the Kurds. We were using the Kurds to do our dirty work, and then we were done with the dirty work. So it's much, much different on many levels. Not that the Kurds aren't important, but at the same time, there's a lot of Kurdish factions who are literal terrorists. I mean, Amnesty International has done reports on this. They've razed villages before. Everything, the qualified... like people would say, Erdogan's going to do this and that. Everything that they accuse Erdogan of doing, you could have found the Kurds, not the Kurds. I hate saying the Kurds because it's not the Kurds.
They're not monolithic
Kurdish,
at all.
Yeah. It's a force. These people are giving me bad habits now because they always say the Kurds. The Kurds will be slaughtered. Erdogan's going to kill the Kurds. 20% of Turkey is Kurds. He's not going to kill 20% of Turkey and he's not going to go into Syria to do it before he goes into Turkey. It's just all around complete mindlessness. And I forget my point because now I'm getting outraged.
Outrage culture in real time, everybody. Only what you can get on crowdsourced politics. With that said, be sure to hit that follow button. It really does help us out a lot trying to get to affiliate status. So we appreciate you all joining us today.
Okay, so Mateo, I think what you're kind of the overall gist of what you're saying, you that's one example, the Kurds in Iraq, and different reactions to different types of foreign policy, or same types of foreign policy in different situations, depending on who's doing it, right? I think that's a pretty good example of a system at play, which is counterintuitive to how we want to view things, right? We want to be able to view policies and to make measured, decisions on exactly which kind of policies are going to be best at any given situation. And people, it's a meme that's relegated to Democrats, except at that level of decision making, that kind of conversation doesn't actually happen.
Arathel wants to get on really quick to try a quote unquote dunk on Mateo. Are we willing to put this on pause to let that happen? Or are we wanting to continue on with the cast and just have it done for a different time?
Let's get him on.
Bring him on, yeah.
All right.
I don't even know who it is.
Yeah, I don't know who it is either. So in order to do this, I need, if you join the Discord, you need to accept our rules, which is at the rules verification, and then you go and click the little key sign that is there. So I think you can see it on the cat. No, you can't see it. So once you get into Discord, you should see it, be able to click on the rules. And then once you do that, you should be able to join the guest waiting room section, and then I'll pull you in. And then I'll pull you in.
I want to say the way we left Syria was absolutely stupid. Like, Trump botched that in more ways than one, but the main criticism was not that technical, nuanced, foreign policy centric argument. It was the Kurds are going to die. Oh my God. Now all of a sudden I care about the Kurds. And I think that big difference is important.
Sorry about the video, guys. Yes, it's very important. Sorry about the video, guys. I accidentally clicked on when I was scrolling through Discord. I'll be back shortly. There we go. Yes, I can give a link to the Discord. There you go. It's also in the About page on our Twitch. There is a link to Discord as well. Feel free to join it. Like I said, click on the little the key verification on the rules tab, and we'll get you in once you're waiting in the guest room. Go ahead and message me directly either in the Steam chat or on Discord, and I'll be able to pull you in. So I think while we wait on people to join the Discord and debate Mateo, because apparently that's what we do, what I think one of the things that we should kind of that's partly, at least in my opinion, related to outrage culture is the phenomenon known as a moral panic. Do any of the other people on the cast right now, on the cast with me, know what I am talking about when I say moral panic?
Yeah, it's back when I used to play D&D in the 80s and 90s, and they realized cleverly that I was actually worshiping fucking Satan. So, or then later in the 90s when I was playing video games and having my 8-bit bullshit video game was actually priming me to become a school shooter, because Lord knows, if you're playing Pong, that's going to make you a ruthless Super Mario. It's just all you want to do at that point is load the AK and fucking gun down your geometry class. So yeah, I mean, moral panic is one of those things where it's kind of like the proto Karens, like the Karens before Karens, which is really that broad base of white wasp suburban moms that don't really get out much and just decide that anything that's a little bit new and just outside of their normal range of experience, must be the work of the devil.
If I can expand on that, it's not just the Karens out there. I would also expand the definition of moral panic to include things like people who believe in white genocide or degeneracy theory.
Something I brought up earlier: people who think black people can't wear hoodies without being endangered.
Yeah, the kind of the official definition is a moral panic is a feeling of fear spread among many people that some evil threatens the well-being of society as a whole. It is the process of arousing social concern over an issue, usually the work of moral entrepreneurs and the mass media, essentially turning a fear into an existential threat to existence.
Yeah, it's cultural fear specifically. So it's not things like oh my God, an asteroid's coming to Earth. It's things about people's certain behaviors generally.
Oh, for sure.
Asteroids are a big moral dilemma for me. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I pray for an asteroid.
Oh, okay.
At this point, the moral dilemma is: do we want an asteroid or not?
I thought you.
Joking. Hashtag Team Virus. Kidding. Don't
You
care.
segued into that so good, though. I thought you
No,
would give me a serious
no.
answer for a second.
But one of the things that I'm sure other people have thought of this is the idea that in order to have moral panic, you also have to have people where you can push their moral panic button, and this is kind of taking that idea onto an individual level. So the way I would look at this kind of thing is saying that it's essentially what trolls do, right? So a troll will look at something that might be a part of somebody's internal sense of their self and very much part of their identity, and look for a way to exploit that in order to piss them off. So if you take that idea to a macro level, that's how you get to moral panic. Or one of the ways you can get to moral panic, rather.
Nazis actually did that. They made use of that. They manufactured a moral panic to get people to, kind of be desensitized to rounding up Jews. Like they had to get people to hate Jews to do that, and they stirred it up in some really questionable ways. But it was a moral panic that they created. It's horrible morality. Don't get me wrong. It's stupid morality, but that's an example, I'd say.
Compare.
I would call it immorality, but
Yeah, a comparison to that would be the war on drugs as well.
Oh, the war on drugs was totally moral panic, especially with pot, like ridiculous.
This is your brain on drugs. It was an egg, and they were talking about pot.
Oh God!
Like they weren't talking about the hard shit. They were talking about weak ass regs. They're talking about.
Well, I mean, there was. Did anybody? Oh, I actually kind of want to. Did anybody see the meth never once commercials?
Yes, I did. Those were fantastic.
Totally a Midwestern thing. But yeah, so the one where like meth not even once, and it's a woman that like took meth and then she's in the back alley turning tricks for meth. I'm just like, what? Moral panic.
It's pretty good stuff, I guess.
Moral panic. Yeah, moral panic.
Okay, I think we what else should we talk about with this thing? I feel like we've covered a lot, but I feel like there's still more to cover. Thoughts?
Brett Kavanaugh.
Okay.
Ooh.
We're just hitting all the buttons today. We're pushing all the buttons.
I'm good at this. This is what I'm good at.
Pressing buttons, yeah.
It's almost like you're a troll.
With the
you're not a troll.
Except I'm sincere. It's just the Kavanaugh situation is a lot like the Bork situation back in the day, where Democrats consciously decided to completely go ape on during a hearing. And actually, during the Bork hearings, that's what was considered ape back then, but that's mild compared to what we saw during the Kavanaugh hearings. Like we had top Democrats, like people who were arguably going to be the next president of the United States, or had a really good chance of being the next president of the United States, party leaders, highly respected, highly prominent figures. Who were their guests? How do you think those people with all those signs and the shirts screaming got in there? They were guests of these senators. How many words did the chairman, Chuck Grassley, get in before these top celebrated senators literally started badgering him? I'm telling you, I'm not even kidding. It's like 12 words, 13 words, and boom. Then they just unload it. It was a complete shit show. And these are the people saying that, well, I just care about Brett Kavanaugh's temperament, man. That was a deal breaker for me. Was it really a deal breaker? Because did you see the senators? I mean, the only difference is they weren't accused of raping someone, so they weren't upset. Like, they were sitting there, like, basically acting like actually, that's not fair to them. I'm not going to say they're acting like the jury's out, but they were signaling in ways. I don't want to say they were concluding that he was guilty, because I don't think anyone's dumb enough to say that explicitly. So, well, it's unfair.
Yeah, you did just say something. You said they weren't as upset because those Democrats weren't accused of rape. Well, I mean, that's a pretty good reason to not be as upset, I think.
Oh, it's a great reason to not be as upset. That's why you should be even lighter on Kavanaugh's behavior. The man's family was being like, it's ridiculous.
There was a lot of wrong things done with that one.
And we're talking about, like, Blasey Ford's story changed. There were things about it that just didn't sit well. No prosecutor would have brought charges for that. And it's clearly not as unbelievable as the Biden thing. The Biden one's got a whole ton of holes, way more than this. But at the same time, there's a lot of parallels there that I think could teach us a lot about how we react to certain things and when.
We do have a person waiting in the guest waiting room. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them in. I believe they are Gale. So give me 1 second. And Kalira, can you hear us? I know that you have your mic muted. I just added you to the podcast guest role on Discord. You might need to unmute your mic if you are ready to join.
Oh, goodbye.
Oh.
Yep.
Never mind.
Oh, we lost her. Or him.
Her. She'll come back.
Oh, okay.
I was
She's trying to figure it out. Yeah.
If you're using your phone, you basically just at the bottom of the phone there's like a speaker icon, a microphone icon, and a like phone hang up button. You have to turn the speaker icon to use it like it's defaults to being on speakerphone, so you have to turn that off to use it as your phone.
Am I coming through too loud also? I'm kind of yelling at the mic and I'm really close. I just want to make sure I'm not too
honestly I can't tell because I have everybody super low right now, because if I don't, I can't control the volume of everybody.
Everyone in the chat, if I'm too loud, let me know if I should back up from the mic or not.
You sound fine to me.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I saw Razor Flood asking about the Tim Allen's controversy, I guess, with Man of the House or whatever. I don't really know too much about it, but I know the show got pulled. I don't really remember it all that much. I mean, it was a typical sitcom. Ago. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was
something about it.
Tim Allen was, I mean, he's a relatively famous conservative celebrity. And, he's claiming that he hasn't really received work or that his show was canceled too early because he's a conservative, right? Not because of the quality of the show, even though it was a pretty boring, typical sitcom, which no one watched. Like, it was a thing. It was someone who was complaining about things happening to them and looking for excuses is what it was.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it too. And the conservatives tended to not really like that show because it put the man in kind of like a weak, submissive position to women in general, from what I gathered from online discourse about it. So I don't really know the whole thing about it.
The whole dumb male getting, made fun of by his wife
the daughter
is a trope for a different demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't appeal to the younger conservatives anymore, apparently. That used to just be
Dale.
Yeah, that was like, I mean, what was that? Like Roseanne? Who was it before that?
Roseanne, not so much, I don't think.
Ellen DeGeneres back in the day, didn't she get canceled for coming out? Which is actually crazy when you think about it now. That's insane.
Yeah,
or did she get canceled, or did she like have to like quit because she knew she was being canceled? Like, I don't remember any details from that.
Same thing.
Razor Flood, I honestly don't know if they brought it back or not. That's why I don't know. If they did, or Fold, I'm sorry, Razor Fold. I don't know if they did or not.
How messed up is that, though? She came out as gay, so harmless, and you get canceled for that shit? Like, crazy, man.
Think about what life was like 20 years ago relative to gay rights, gay people in culture, and think about it now. Where now it's harmless. Back then, it was crazy. Yeah.
Gail, I see that your mic is no longer muted. Can you hear us?
I think so.
Oh, awesome.
There we go.
Yes, we can hear you as well now. Thank you for joining the show. What are your thoughts about everything that we've talked about so far? Why did you want to join us on air?
Before I start, I'm getting an echo from, I think, the Twitch and the Discord.
Yeah, so
if mute the Twitch and you'll be good.
Twitch, yeah.
Okay, hold on.
It's one of the things we should have told everybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we all go through it at first.
I feel like a complete Luddite.
I know the feeling.
Where's the mute button for Twitch?
If you're using Chrome, you can just right click on the tab and hit mute site, and that will do it. And if you're not on Chrome, then you just highlight over the Twitch, and then the volume bar comes up.
Yeah,
Okay,
kind
I
of like
think
YouTube.
In the bottom left.
Bottom left, yes. Oh, and for everybody that might not know, this we do have closed captioning available for this stream. If you have, you can enable it by highlighting on it and turning on the CC options, and it'll give you a bunch of different options. Figured out a way to route both of my audio and the other guest audio through the Discord. So if that's something that you need or would like to see, go ahead. Feel free to go ahead and click on it, and it'll show you how it works. There's a little bit of issues when there's two people talking at the same time, but other than that, I think it works pretty good.
Here at CSP, we're friendly to the hearing impaired.
For sure.
What?
Oh, Art.
Aw,
God.
man.
All right, that's it. Kick
Shut
Art
up,
out. His ears are
Trump.
shot.
Sorry, canceled. Art's
Canceled.
canceled.
His ears, yeah.
I mean, we're all getting
His ears are
canceled
bad.
after this. We got non-leftists on our cast on Twitch, so we're fucked.
We're all getting tongue-tied.
That's not why we're fucked, but okay. Gail, you there?
I'm here.
Gail, please go ahead. We'll show.
I'm trying to to put together my thoughts. I think the whole outrage culture, actually, it's the leftists that piss me off the most. As a leftist, as a liberal, the faux offense of literally everything. And I told my mom about this one situation where I was in a political group on Facebook, and I think it was All for Women, and there is a woman on there who was extremely, she was just extreme. And every time a white person would comment about anything racial, she would immediately attack and say how racist we were, and you can't have an opinion, you're white, and all of those things. And as someone who appreciates the privilege of, I am privileged, but I still can have an opinion, I would fight back on her, and she and other people in the group would say, "Don't tone police her," and that became like the anthem to all of this bullshit about the outrage that especially I think uber liberals have. That not only it's the canceling of the in-group that I think Art was talking about.
Mhm.
It's the tone policing. Everyone can have their own opinion, but only if you word it in the exact way I want you to word it. If not, then you're kicked the hell out. And so I kicked myself out of that group because I was going to throw something. So I just can't tolerate it.
No,
Yeah,
I think
sounds
it's
like
completely fair.
Sounds like
Go ahead.
every rally and leftist political group that I've ever been in, honestly.
Yeah.
There's always someone like that. And you have to learn to ignore them when you can. I at the risk of sounding like I'm on the right end of the political spectrum, we have to value merits of arguments. And the question is, how do we communicate to people like that based on the merit of the argument that you're trying to present, rather than within this whole system of virtue signaling? And it's not an easy thing, and frequently it just causes people like us to leave.
For sure.
Art, you look like you have something to say.
So if you think about, terms of, quote unquote intolerance, leftists tend to be a lot less forgiving of people that stray from the orthodoxy as opposed to the right. And I'll say this as a former fairly hardcore conservative. Just for fun, I actually pulled up my old Free Republic login, which was active from March of 2000. My original was actually 1996, and I lost the password for it.
What's
So-
Republic?
Free Republic was one of the original conservative websites from the 90s. It literally, I had some conservative folks in my family who got me keyed onto it earlier. And if you think about Breitbart or Poll or some of the wherever you would go right now for conservative thought, that's where people went in the 90s. So it's antiquated right now. It's just I keep my login there just kind of remind myself of the old days. But back then, for instance, we're just talking about gay. I was anti-gay marriage, but also vaguely of the opinion that homosexuality was a net detriment for a great power like the United States. Like if you think about the need for a kind of a military and industrial and commercial base, you need to be generating children. You need to have family units that are building blocks of a society, that any individual block like that would need to be replicated across the entire breadth of the country. And the more of those you had, the more solid the foundation you'd have for greatness to kind of go up from there. And again, like I was really smart for conservative. So like I thought about this in much more detail than your average conservative did. And even then, like as the 2000s kind of wore on, I would kind of run into areas where I'm like, what? Wait, why do we even believe that? Like, what's the foundation for that? And eventually, I kind of fell, over a period of time, further and further away from conservative orthodoxy, and then, kind of drifted into the left. So now I'm probably, honestly, fairly, deep into the left, aside from a few like residual conservative beliefs, like guns, that I am, pretty strongly, for.
It's actually pretty liberal.
Well, depending on how you look at it, exactly. I mean, Marx would say that the proletariat should never be disarmed. So, no, seriously. So it depends on how you want to look at that. But kind of the long and short of it is, just from my perspective over the last 20 years of that progression, conservatives do not think much about their views other than it's believed to be right, either because the Bible or society or whatever says so, and that's it. Like they do not examine it, they don't think about it. And to even have that conversation, like conservatives will enjoy it if you do that, but they don't really care. Like they vaguely know what they believe and they're just kind of good with that. And as long as you're more or less on that page, if you're anti-abortion, they don't really care why. Like it doesn't really matter. Like as long as you're basically there. Whereas the left is really a progressive in the literal sense of like intellectual progression. Like you're taking where society's at now and looking where it can go next. Like why is? Go ahead.
Yeah, if I can argue with that point, actually, I mean, liberalism is based, or progressivism, I would say, is still based on that kind of metaphysical. It's not God, but it's still this spiritual rightness, which is, to put it into words, I guess would be being on the right side of history, right? That spirit of things. But the actual progressive, building on the past and building specific ideas and the actual enhancement of them is that empirical process is not something that people tend to follow. It's something that they might say they follow, much like people say they follow Christ, but it's not something that's actually followed. And that thought process just isn't behind, how people make their arguments.
Speaking of leftists with good views on guns, I have a quote from the late, great Christopher Hitchens. If you take the Second Amendment as a whole, which the National Rifle Association and the political conservatives generally do not, it can be understood as enshrining the right, if not indeed the duty, of citizens to defend their country and themselves from aggression, including aggression from the government. The time might come when the people might have to muster against the state. Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, obviously, that's the least likely scenario. You're more likely to have private tyranny come to your doorsteps. But the thing is, that's not a super right-wing view. And I meant more, when I said it was liberal, I meant more in like the literal sense. Like it's more hands-off. It's not conserving what we can do with guns. It's closer to, I don't want to say laissez-faire, but it's in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole gun thing is like a total, like, we could go real deep on that one, but, regardless of how you want to look at it, that's the essential argument, whether you approach it from the left or the right, is, should the individual unit of a country, the individual, have the means of committing lethal violence? Because, as our, good friend who's near and dear to our heart, Chairman Mao Zedong said, all power flows from the barrel of a gun, all political power. And that's ultimately right. The only thing that really matters in this world is your ability to kill to enforce what you believe. So anything beyond that's just opinion. And that, again, we could totally go down that rabbit hole. But, just kind of loop back to what I was saying earlier. And I agree with what you're saying as far as, liberalism is, or, leftism is basically its own God, like one that has been created as opposed to one that's been handed down. Like a lot of leftists hate this. Like you tell an atheist, well, atheism is your God. They hate to hear it. They hate to hear it.
Right.
But like
yeah, I wouldn't call it God, just a metaphysical
Some
system of
atheists, though,
ethics.
Dogma.
some atheists become real cultish. I mean, there are people
You're right.
like, see, I subscribe to something like Dawkins made it popular, the scale of theistic probability. I think it explains atheism a lot better than people commonly explain it. People think atheism is you say there's no God, but really there's steps of atheism. It's basically, I don't know. We can't say. Like it's a sliding scale. I could look it up because I'm not going to do it any justice off the top of my head. But the point is that
The difference between being
there
agnostic and
are
an
people.
atheist.
Yeah, there are people
Yeah.
who they're just atheists by coincidence. Like if they grew up or they had some little thing different, they would probably be a zealot for Christianity. It's just some people, they grow up in a culture where it's atheism is what they're taught. But
Yeah.
a lot of atheists, I would say, don't have a God in that sense at all. There's a lot of atheists who are just like, listen, I'm like 99.999 repeating decimal sure there's no God, but for the sake of being honest, philosophically honest, I'll leave that 0.0000 chance that there is
Right.
in case I'm wrong. But I mean, looking at everything I see, there's really no reason for me to even flirt with the idea of a God.
Well, let me just finish my point real quick, and then we can keep rolling. But like what Dylan was saying, as far as like leftism having a set of values that, and I'm just going to use an old expression, but like within every human soul is a God-shaped whole. Like there is this kind of concept of like humans are these spiritual constructs that are looking for some kind of belief to fill that void. So regardless of whether it's an actual religious from like the old classic Christian, Islamic, Jewish dogma or Buddhist, whatever, or it could be an entirely new construct of values and beliefs and science, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have to be a God, it doesn't have to be a religion, it doesn't have to be anything like that. It just has to be the kind of greater than oneself belief that there is something more than the individual that is worth pursuing that fills that kind of void. And it doesn't matter what you want to call it. Seriously, like the whole like feature of trying to name it misses the point entirely. With the right, they already have it. Like, and I say this as somebody who used to be, pretty, hardcore conservative. Right wingers don't need to think about it because it's already been provided. You either fall in with it or you don't. But like, it's kind of a loosey goosey thing because it's very broad. Like it's more or less like the kind of the Christian, the Americana, the sense of the manifest destiny of why Europeans landed on American shores and then created this great American experiment. Like all of that is this weird bundle of beliefs that you can latch onto at any point, and it doesn't really matter where you get onto it as long as you're more or less on board. They'll find a place for you. Like conservatives are weirdly a lot more tolerant in that respect. They don't really care where your entry point is so long as you're sort of on board. With liberals, and especially, and I hate to even use the distinction, but like actual leftists, it's much more of a considered process where a lot of the things, for instance, like with a transgendered person, how you'd refer to them, like are they a transgendered woman, transgendered space woman, capital W woman, like the actual mechanics of it matter a lot to them because they think a lot more about it. And that's it. You just kind of have this different process where you still have these very deep beliefs that are very integral that people are willing to get very defensive over and exclude people entirely from your group if you don't believe in it. That conservatives just don't think about it in those very like particular terms, whereas people on the left will get very, very definition. Like you listen to some Marxists argue about what Marxism is, or like some like proletariat versus lumpen proletariat versus whatever. Like they can get super into the weeds because the specific definitions matter a lot to them. And I think that's why you see cancel culture more prevalent on the left, is that the very specific details of what qualifies and what doesn't matters a lot more on the left. Whereas on the right, it's more, they're just not as smart. Like they just don't think about it as much. So they don't really fucking care. Like as long as you're basically on board with it, they'll find a place for you. On the left, it matters that you're exactly on board with what leftism in its current state is supposed to be. So that ran long, but I just want to throw that out.
Go ahead,
Dylan. Sorry.
If I can respond to that. Yes, you are right. The questions that liberals ask when they're getting into the specifics like that, very rarely do they actually, care about having a conversation or debating, because I think that's something that people do in their own time and not really as a social activity. When they ask those questions, they are social tests, right? If you give the wrong answer, then you're not part of that group, or you need to be corrected somehow and be made part of that group. And your adherence to that is what they're looking for. Yeah. So that's that's kind of getting back to the cancel culture thing.
I use what Art said, the God-shaped hole thing, all the time to explain a lot of the behavior that I even brought up tonight. Like how someone could be so sure of themselves despite being read back line for line the exact quote. It becomes a religion unto itself, not a religion without the spirituality. If you could make the distinction,
Natural rights.
The term that I think you're sorry,
Yeah,
I just want to say
No,
the
it's cool.
term I
Go.
think you're sorry. I think the term you're looking for is a comprehensive moral doctrine.
Ooh, I like that.
I think the term you're looking for is deontological.
But I don't think it's comprehensive. I think they're looking for, because what religion provides is community, safety, survival. They're just looking for that in a secular level. Like, because humans, we need people, we need each other. Well, does it have to be comprehensive? I feel like it could be pretty
and
incoherent.
descriptive. There's a way in order to be good, and if you're not good, then you are failing in the whole realm of the religious section of it. It also generally has rules for society as well, governments as well as individuals.
Yeah, and that's deontological, where you're basically you have a set of correct things where if you do these things, you're right, and really, regardless of the outcome, it's the process that matters, not the outcome.
For sure.
Because also you'll see. Oh.
Okay, I was just going to say, I want to bring Steven in. Gail, do you have any other points you would like to make?
I probably do, but now I can't think of any of them.
I'm sorry,
okay.
we kind of spoke
right.
over you afterwards. We're still learning this whole thing, but I greatly appreciate you coming on the show and providing us your thoughts and opinions. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to bring Steven in now. Steven, I'm going to pull you in. And if you can do a quick mic check once you get in here. You are in now. You should be able to hear us. If you can hear us twice, mute the Twitch. And if you can't speak, then it's because you're muted on your end.
If I could answer Razorfold's question, are you generally saying that leftists say, kneel before me, aka you have to agree with me and why I think this way? It's not so much pass fail so much as it is a point system, kind of an informal point system. If you miss one, it doesn't mean you failed the test, but you're not going to be the valedictorian.
I think you broke up there because I moved somebody. If you can just repeat the last point you made.
Oh, I just said, it's not pass fail. If you miss a question on the test, you're not going to fail the test, but you won't be valedictorian.
Oh, okay. Steven, can you hear us?
Real quick to touch on Razor's question though. I don't think it's anything about. I think most of it is never said. It's never verbal. It's almost always like, if it's not cues, like social cues, it'll be an in-group within the in-group kind of, not outwardly saying to you that you're slowly becoming less welcome, but it'll be noticeable because humans are social animals. We pick up on that stuff, like without even noticing, we pick up on it. So I think it's not about bow down before me, because no one is going to say that. When you question them on that, they're never going to say, hell yeah, they bow down before me. They're going to try to really make it sound like they have an intellectual position, but it's not always that way. Sorry.
No, that's all good. Steven, are
My bad. I can't
No, it's all good. He's having there's having like issues. Steven, you're back in the channel now. I dragged you back in. You said that you could hear us, but we could not hear you. Could you try again, please? You should have the role to speak. I don't think I have it set to. Let me go ahead and just double check and make sure I don't have it set to push to talk for podcast guests.
Yeah, I don't see a mute on him.
Yeah, he's not muted on our server,
so
it's not.
It would
set
be
up
on his side.
Yeah.
Yep. Stephen, it's a mute on your side. It might be your microphone. It might be software.
No, we can't hear you. Please stop trolling the chat, man.
Who's trolling the chat?
Troll that chat.
Pretty sure I know who
Troll
it
it.
is.
Atari
down now.
Hell. Oh well. Gentlemen, ignore the troll.
Anthony's slapping people down with his iron fist.
No, I haven't banned yet.
I know. That's what makes it so funny. Like, who would we have?
So wait, who's Atari Hell? We all know who that is. Who's it?
I have an idea, but I'm not gonna say.
Oh no, say it. Come on.
No, because I don't dox people. They're under a.
Okay, then whisper it to me because I want to know. I'm curious.
Okay,
I don't
Steven,
care. Trolling is the highest form of art, and I salute you, sir.
I don't want his name. I just want his contact information and metadata.
Steven, I'm sorry that you weren't able to join us and you're having mic issues. So I guess we'll just keep going. What else?
Fucking Treywick.
Okay.
Oh, why would you do that? Why?
He said his name. Come on.
Yeah, he kind of said it. I don't know if that counts.
But what other kind of things do I really wanted to get Steven in? I know him from another group where we had a long discussion with several people that were going through an outrage incident themselves. This particular individual had also been on Fox defending atheism to the state, I want to say, of Georgia. No, it was Missouri. It was Missouri. Yeah. So in the state of Missouri, they got very upset and about having under God in the state house or something like that. But they are a typical woke scold. For anybody that might not know what a woke scold is, it is a person that is woke and expresses their wokeness by scolding others that are not woke. So this person was one of those, and we tried to talk them down from their position in a very reasoned kind of way, and it just didn't work at all. But they also they were also trying to make money from it. So
can I say that I really hate buzzwords like that? I think they're pretty counterproductive most of the time.
They are very counterproductive.
Whoa, what buzzword?
Woke scold.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
if the shoe fits,
right?
It's one of those
I
situations
use them,
where,
but they are informal.
Yeah, I would make it a very much a point not to use it against somebody that is expressing genuine outrage, like we said earlier in the cast. But save it for people that are actually being.
Don't save it for anyone. What it is, it's a form of mockery and dismissal. That's what insults like that are. It's a way of getting around addressing what that person is actually saying.
That's a real Karen thing to say, Dylan. It's a good example, though, right?
It is a great example. I also don't like
all these
the use of
people.
I don't like the use of Karen. I don't like the use of Karen. I don't like the use of Becky. However, I am wearing a Darth Becky shirt right now. So
I mean, when I'm joking around, it's perfectly fine. But some people use this stuff like it's serious, and it's just like you have to really question how much you could ever respect this person.
Oh, of course, four white people are going to dislike the word Karen. It's super racist against us.
Oh yeah,
Karen. We can go with Shaniqua and whatever you want to go with. There's always some stupid. Oh, I'm right and you're wrong.
Okay,
and I'm going to let you know my mind is closed. Well, yeah, Chad. Actually, Chad's not the good one, isn't?
No, Chad's the good one.
Well, I think so. Karen is becoming.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that stuff. I just shared the memes blindly sometimes.
So if you're a Chad, you're like ripped and like I don't know, had sex with women all the time. That's a good thing, right?
It goes into kind of like douchebaggy kind of behavior as well, like Brad or whatever.
I mean, when talking about our primal needs, it's kind of the creme of the crop.
I don't know what counts as a compliment anymore. So
nothing.
I have my own thing. I do my own thing.
Everything is not a compliment, and nothing matters. Welcome to.
You got to start off with an insult. That's how it works now.
Crowdsourced nihilist.
Gross. Look at those shoes.
Represent. But we are in the question and answer phase of the podcast now. If anybody would like to have a question answered, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. We are still open for people coming onto air. I know that we've been having issues, so I'll probably end up making a quick little video on how to set up Discord so people will be able to view it and join our Discord more easily in the future. Let's what else, guys? I think we are scheduled for about 2 hours, so we can keep going on whatever. I changed the I didn't change the topic, but I changed the category to just chatting. So let's hear it. What do we want to talk about?
If we're still going with outrage culture,
we can still go with outrage culture. It's open.
Because I have.
You're breaking up now. You need to fix your voice meter again.
I don't know if it's my voice meter. I think it was my connection dropping.
Jesus.
It sounds.
Holy what the?
Sounds like you're underwater.
Jesus.
In an underwater cave.
Are you?
I'm going to show you how to fix that, Mateo.
What the?
Yeah.
There's no way to fix this. This program is garbage. This is freeware. I mean, I hate freeware.
I mean, I have the problem, but I'm able to fix it like all the time. So maybe just go to voice meter banana.
Turned it off and back on again.
Yeah, I might try banana. If not, I'm just gonna get an XL mic eventually. It's not too outrageous. And
stop talking. Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go, Mateo. I'm going to go ahead and move you to the guest waiting room and to move you back. Vaporware says that might be a fix. You will have to put your mic camera back on. Oh, never mind. Connected.
How am I now?
Still breaking up.
God damn it!
Just go to your default settings on your mic, and you just won't sound as smooth.
Reboot.
You still have that manly voice, though.
Reboot's not gonna help. I'm just gonna do what Anthony said. That's easy. Actually, it's probably not easy with this program. I hate this program, and it's supposed to be super simple too. I'm the Luddite.
I hope it doesn't pick up the fan. It's hot in my room. Is it picking up the fan on anybody? Am I in a tunnel?
What are your thoughts on the Biden gaffe today? Okay.
I think the Biden gaffe kind of goes along with the outrage culture myself because we saw a lot of indignation from people, but we also saw people.
It wasn't a
gaffe. That's the thing. Like, yeah, I think it's going to be, and I hate to say this, but I think it's going to be mostly white people to give a shit. I don't see a lot of black people caring that much, to be honest.
The only black people I've seen fuss are either P. Diddy or Trump supporters who are black.
Yeah.
Professional black organizations are going to be so
Jesus Christ.
You gotta stop.
Yeah, that ain't working.
Mateo, so this is what you should do. When you go into your actual mic settings, like on your computer sound, and just set it to your actual headphones and mic, and then do the same thing in Discord, and it should fix it.
Okay, Anthony, now you've got like a fan blowing into your mic or something.
Yeah, I turned on my fan. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay,
guys.
it was actually a
really
fan blowing into your mic. Wow, I got that right. That was like one of those close your eyes and stick your hand in this and see what it, guess what it is.
How about now?
Yeah, there you go. Good.
Excellent. Okay. All right, so Biden gaffe.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it's all the professional black organizations, all the habitual and completely dyed-in-the-wool Democrats who are black are going to downplay this as much as you possibly can. Whereas if it was even Trump saying, what do you have to lose? It would all of a sudden be an affront on our decency and our democracy or something. So, I mean, that's, if we're going to use like democracy to decide like right and wrong about that thing, like if we're going to use like black people as token voters for telling us what is right and wrong, I think that's a really bad process. I think we should just stick with what we held before, and that's white people shouldn't be saying these things. Like, why use two different standards? What's the point of switching?
Wait, what?
Saying you're not black to a black guy, that was never socially acceptable.
Oh,
No,
I
no.
don't think anybody is saying
No.
it's socially acceptable. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are just going to be like, eh.
They're going to accept it socially. That's what they're going to do. Or they're
Well,
going to
I mean,
No, I
pretend
think
it even
it's going to
exists.
be
They're
one
going
of
to pretend
those.
it's not even a thing.
I think it's
Look.
going to be one of those situations where they're not going to accept it. They're just not going to go off as much as they might otherwise.
It'll
would.
be a done story by tomorrow morning. It's not going anywhere. Trust me. With who
Probably not.
has the most outlets and the most popularity, it's going to be like a Fox News thing. It's going to go away for good or bad, whatever reason you want to say. It's not going to be a big deal. Biden can shoot a man on Fifth Avenue, and he'll still have these people's votes. He'll still have my vote too. I don't want to make it sound like I would pick Trump over Biden, but some people really have trouble being critical.
So I don't really care about who cares about it. We were asked whether it was a good thing to say. Frankly, no. That's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
That's
didn't see the
depth
exact
of my
question.
thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't see the direct question. Yeah, it wasn't cool, and I called it out as soon as it happened. So we actually posted it on our page and had a little bit of back and forth on the page. So you can check it out.
A
on
little
Facebook.
bit. Wow.
No,
I
the
mean, in certain
page, not
contexts,
the
it would
group.
be perfectly fine. Like, it's just running for president's a pretty formal spot. You know, you're like, you can't really, you shouldn't complain about the presidency deteriorating because of certain behavior. And then all of a sudden, when like your guy is on that bandwagon, all of a sudden it's like, well, we already went down here. You know, Trump brought us here. It's like, then maybe you didn't really care that much to begin with.
Mm.
I can't argue with you. So
I mean, maybe not. Did I talk guns yet? Guns is I held that one off because that's my pet project.
Gail's
My pet
right.
issue.
She said, I think it's a ridiculously stupid way of putting Black people voting for Trump or voting against their interests and their culture in some ways. That it was a stupid way of putting that. I just didn't find it. I didn't find it offensive. I knew exactly what he meant when he said it.
Oh, I knew what he meant. And I was less offended than I was trying to hold people to what I perceive to be their standards. Like that's one of the things with outrage culture, like all around, is when someone says, like, if I see you holding like saying, you know, you can't, a white person shouldn't say XYZ about black people, then it happens. I'm going to start to question that. Sorry, hold on. Go on without me for a second.
Leave me.
I just lost a whole bunch of stuff. All right,
close out
never
your
mind.
notes.
What was I saying? Yeah, no, they're gone.
Steven says he got his thing sorted out.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yay.
I'll
Save me
pull
from
you
my
in
own
then.
mistake, Steven.
And I did want to get you into the show because you were one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. So let me go ahead and pull you in. Hey, Steven, can you hear us? Please, if you hear two of us speaking, then you need to mute your Twitch.
Nothing.
Damn.
Okay, he can hear us. In your Discord settings, the little cog that's at the bottom, make sure that it's you have your mic assigned to it. It might be trying to pick up a default mic that's not being used.
Oh yeah. So user settings, and then go down to voice and video, and then under input device, make sure you select the appropriate microphone.
And headset, or whatever you're using.
Correct.
Ooh, we could talk about Gawker. I forgot to bring that one up.
Oh,
What
go
happened
for
with
it.
Gawker?
Yeah,
Gawker's
tell.
a
They
classic
tried
one.
to destroy a private citizen's life, and then another private citizen financially backed him, and apparently that was an attack on democracy and journalism and everything.
Whoa,
and
I don't
mom
know
and
about
apple
all
pie.
that.
I'm
It was a
sorry,
big
We're
deal.
talking
A lot
about
of people
Peter Thiel,
thought
right?
it was like rich people buying innocence or guilt or something.
but can you explain what actually happened?
Oh, Hulk Hogan had sex with like his friend's wife or something, but it wasn't. I don't even think it was like cheating. I think the guy was like, you know,
No, it's
into
Bubba
that
the
type of
Love
stuff.
Sponge, and he's watching from the closet.
That is damn.
Wait,
Okay,
what?
Hulk had a
the
sex
Love
tape.
Sponge. He was like a radio DJ from
Yep.
Florida, and he was like, hey Hulk, you think my wife's cute? Why don't you bang her? So like he sat in the closet and jerked off while Hulk Hogan banged his wife.
Wow. Literal cucking.
I mean, teaches their own. Yeah, teaches their
Literal
own.
cucking.
Hey,
Right.
we're not no
not
judgment
judging.
here.
No judgment.
No
I do not kink
No
shame.
judgment.
I'm just saying that
Trust
because
me.
I'm kind of laughing, and I don't want people to think like, it's just not a very normal setting, and it's whatever.
Yeah, but literally that's what happened. But yeah, go on.
So media organizations like Gawker, whose mission seems to make America dumber, was posted the sex tape, and they're like, "Oh, this is news." Blah blah blah. This and that. He eventually went to
Jesus.
court and everything. They had to admit it wasn't news because what self-respecting full-grown adult would actually try to say that was newsworthy? Like, I don't even think TMZ would try that. But I guess Hulk didn't have the money to defend himself or to bring the case forward. So Peter Thiel, I think it was,
Yeah.
Peter Thiel backed
Yeah.
him. And he was able to receive justice. And for some reason, a private citizen helping out another private citizen when he can't afford his legal expenses was like a scandal.
Well,
And it was being treated as like an attack on journalism, I think.
The thing,
okay,
But
but
it's Gawker.
there's more context to that.
Yeah,
and
but
that is that
sorry. Go ahead.
that
Art, go ahead.
Gawker outed Peter Thiel as gay.
That's gay. Yeah.
And
Oh.
he was. I mean, this is a billionaire who did not want that to be publicized, and we can argue whether or not that's right or wrong or whatever. But at the end of the day, they enraged an extremely powerful, politically connected, and wealthy man who just sat back and waited for the opportunity to stick the knife back in. And he found the opportunity with the Hulk Hogan thing, which he funded absolutely to the hilt and completely drove Gawker's out of business. Or the original owners. I mean, they lost their shirts. They lost everything. He blew them out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and Gawker wasn't just Gawker. It was an entire
Right.
media.
It was a
enterprise.
constellation of
There
websites.
was,
Yeah.
I think they
So
had
Peter Thiel had
controlling
an axe to grind. That's not that bad at all,
Yeah.
considering it still went to the courts. It's not like he bought the courts. The courts still made a fair ruling.
Yeah,
It's just Hulk Hogan wouldn't have been able to afford a fair ruling. He would have went broke because the Gawker decided to just post his sex life on TV and be like, "Oh, this is news. Fuck you, man."
Well, and that was the idea, is that that guy, the owner of Gawker, was wealthy. I mean, he had a lot of money. He just didn't have Peter Thiel money. Like, Peter Thiel came in and he's like, "Oh, you know what?" He goes, "That check that you can write, I can add zeros to that. Like, let's go."
Homeboy should have settled then.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'm just saying, this is how our justice system works, is that if you pick a fight with a billionaire, that guy's eventually going to bury you. Like, especially if you're
Not
playing
necessarily.
fast and loose.
Billionaires lose court cases.
Oh, well, I mean,
If Hogan was in the wrong or not right, he wouldn't. Well,
No.
not necessarily.
What I'm
There's
saying
a
is that if you're the kind of organization like Gawker was that kind of plays fast and loose, and you have those kind of enemies, you're just playing with fire. It's just a matter of time before you step over the line and you get destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, a billionaire can lose a court case easily, but they can keep funding more and more
Mhm.
court cases.
They should
Yeah.
fund every single court case they desire because every court case should be funded. Like, there's nothing wrong with even because he had an axe to grind. It doesn't make anything about it wrong. It's a great thing that he helped someone go through the entire case.
No one's saying
fairly-
that in this case that he did anything wrong. We're just saying that, if you pick a fight with someone like Peter Thiel, you're probably going to lose.
You mess with the bull, you're gonna get the horns.
Oh, wow.
But
Just wait until Bill
good-
Gates
good 80s
vaccinates him.
but the thing is
That's
that
real money.
I don't
Right.
actually remember that being that outrageous. I think the
I
idea
got
that
like a lot of shit.
I don't know.
I don't remember from. It was like from someone. It might not even been before I. It might have been before I met you guys.
No, it was a
could've
big
been.
deal at the time.
it
Absolutely.
was a big deal, but I don't remember anybody taking that as like, oh, this is a miscarriage of justice stance. Like, at all.
Oh, no. There was a lot of people who were like, this is the death of journalism. And, how
It's
clearly
like
these
drilled into
billionaires-
my head, man. People
No, it-
really said shit about me
Yeah,
because of my
no.
opinion on this.
No,
thing.
it was
I don't
absolutely a
disbelieve
big
you, I
deal at the
just
time.
Didn't experience it myself.
Yeah. No, but I remember that too, Mateo. That was a huge thing. People were like, it's the death of journalism.
Yeah, we're
Sorry,
talking about the
Gawker
Gawker.
itself
Like,
was the
Yeah,
death
yeah.
of journalism.
that boy from the National Enquirer or whatever that
Right.
weird ass like little tabloid or
Ugh.
pamphlet they have at the gas stations. That's about Gawker level journalism.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating too. So if you're a Gawker fan, shut up. I don't think we have any Gawker fans out there. I wouldn't tell you to shut up if, you know.
Hey, you don't need to apologize, man. It's all good.
I know. I just don't want to
Offend
fuck
anyone?
you guys.
Different form of political commentary.
Be sure to hit that subscribe or that follow button, everybody.
Please, we need it.
We really do. Oh my god. Any questions from the audience? I'll give it a little bit of time due to the lag, but we are, like I said, in the question and answer section. So please go ahead and ask us questions. We still have a little bit more time left on the stream, and we're here for y'all. So feel free. And it can be anything related. It doesn't have to be outrage culture related. You can ask us whatever. If we stand really still, maybe people will think we're frozen. Just kidding.
We could always bring in the gun topic.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, everybody gets outraged about guns. So, what do you want to talk
Especially
about?
about deaths that have nothing to do with the legislation that they push through, like it's life or death. It's
But is
like
that really
30,000
outrage
people a
culture?
year. Oh yeah, feigning outrage. We're talking about
I don't know if it's a feign of
insincere
outrage.
rage. Well, according to my definition, the gun issue exhibits insincere rage, umbrage, and indignation without personal accountability or commitment. And I could even explain that. We're talking about people here who will hold up the pistol deaths in America, and they'll be like, "This is horrible. We should never have this in America." And they'll make a really it sounds heartfelt and a really a strong case against that. And you know what their solution is to stop all those pistol deaths? Ban rifles that have 0.01 to do with those numbers. I mean, that is nothing but insincere outrage.
I don't think it's insincere. I think it's just
okay. Maybe it's
misattribution.
sincere, but I don't know if that's exactly redeeming for these people. I would rather be willfully ignorant than just unaware of what I'm trying really hard to do. But anyway, the thing is, these people will also swear that they don't want to ban or confiscate guns. Not all of them. I'm being general, so I mean, I don't want anyone to take this personally. But then they'll sit there and point to Japan or the UK as examples of what we should strive to. We're never going to get there without banning and confiscating guns, without doing the very things you say you do not stand for. So again, are you honestly mistaken, or is that just a blind spot that you really never thought about thinking of if someone out there has those characteristics? Because not everyone's a hypocrite. I don't want to.
No, I think it's a little bit of both. I think, big scary or big black gun is very scary, people.
I mean, it is, but there's arguments to go after those guns, but a non sequitur is not the way to do it. You don't say, look at these 30,000 pistol deaths. Let's get rid of the ones that look like rifles that go in the army. It's complete nonsense. If these people actually held up the rifle deaths, they would have no argument. They would actually look super, super dramatic.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Sorry, Dylan.
Oh no! Don't apologize for your righteous indignation.
Never.
So outraged.
Yeah, no. I mean, do you think
I'm not
there's
sincerely outraged? This is a very consistent view I've had for years and years.
That's another thing. Is the righteous indignation, even when it's justified, is it really justified? Right? Even if you're sincere, is it the best approach to things? And if we cared about the issues, if we cared about trying to actually communicate information to people and actually trying to persuade people, is that the approach that we would take? I don't think it is.
If I was really confident I could persuade people on the gun issue, I'd probably be a little more Mr. Rogers about it. But I mean, when it comes to, and we talked about this earlier, we want to kind of spice things up a little bit, make it more entertaining for you, the audience at home. So I'm putting a little sofrito on it.
Yeah, I mean, so
white Spanish accent.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and not to make this about you, but you just made some good points there, and you did it kind of. You raised your voice, when you were talking about how wrong these people were.
It's rightfully maddening. I won't say that I don't get upset about it. I do. Right. It's worth getting upset over.
Right, and you are absolutely sincere. Do you think anybody who didn't already agree with you was absorbed what you were saying?
I think maybe one person here agrees with me when it comes to this situation. I'm surrounded by lefties on
I agree with you now, Mateo. You got me. Yes, you persuaded me.
Persuaded me, ban all the guns. Joke's on you.
Yeah, because he's holding a gun.
Me and Nick are going to hit the range tomorrow.
Do it up, do it up.
See, ironically, ironically, I do agree with you. Many of the things that you're saying, and you know this, which is
Ironically,
ironically, because I don't take your position on the issue, right? I do support gun control, and I think that a lot of people who are kind of they use this righteous indignation and then take a policy standpoint that doesn't match it, and that's exactly what you just said. And of course, to me, the answer is we'll take a policy position that matches what you're mad about, right? But for you, it's don't get mad over this, or I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but
I mean, you can get mad over it, but when I pull your card, don't sit there and make excuses.
We do have a question from the audience that I want to get to before it escapes my mind. So JW String says, they are a Christian and have qualms with the moral majority as an attempt to rally American Christian population as a political force. I think it led to misuse of the faith and rendered pulpits to be more like political platforms to shape public opinions. Since you all mentioned moral panic earlier, I'm interested to hear your opinion on the role of the religious right in stirring up rage culture as it has come to be today.
Ooh, I think that's really relevant, especially given all the controversy right now around the churches that want to open. Good question.
So if I may ask, JW String, would you consider yourself more of a liberal Christian or more of a conservative Christian? And would you consider yourself more spiritual Christianity or more, I don't know, what's the term, scriptural?
Textual,
I suppose. You don't have to answer those questions. I'm just curious.
Oh, bupkis. Sorry.
Does anyone want to take a shot at his question while we're waiting?
let me see.
You don't have to answer those questions. I'm just curious.
Oh, gotta server mute you. Evil Steve Bannon, aka Atari Thrill, please mute your Twitch since you are now in the Discord channel. As to that, I think it does.
Catholic.
So when we talk about a moral panic, it does require a certain sense of there being an existential threat to the group in question, and I think because of the sexual revolution and the push for equal rights for women and in some certain subsects of Christianity, Black people, you had this kind of writing on the wall that what had led them to be the cultural forefront or the people that were in charge, to feel like their power is being taken away and therefore they were losing their position in society, and this was a bad thing because a lot of people believe that if you go to an ungodly society, quote unquote, then your country is going to be get smited by God, or is it smote? Whatever. So I think that's probably kind of how it works or not.
If I could step in, the religious right is extremely, extremely big on moral outrage. I mean, we're probably thinking of it from an Amerocentric viewpoint, but look at the Middle East. I mean, we're talking about real heavy, heavy like influence of outrage based over the most inane like pieces of scripture. So any kind of far right kind of religious view, I think they're going to always kind of take the cake on outrage culture, even though what you guys said earlier about like liberals being a little more like a little less accepting, like they maybe feel like they could shop around more for members of their group.
No, I agree with that. And if this is a subject that actually interests you, JW String, we will be publishing an episode on the second Tuesday of next month that actually delves into this topic a bit more in regards to Christian dominionism and Attorney General Barr. So be on the lookout for that episode when it gets published to our podcast.
Yeah, and so JW, you mentioned that you're Catholic. I assume that's kind of what you've observed the most in the religious rights during Outrage culture, as you put it. And, Catholicism in the U.S., just to think of it historically, has been relatively a powerless minority, right? We didn't have our first Catholic president until 1960, and it was kind of a scandal, even when that did happen.
Oh my God, you'll listen to everything the Pope says. Go.
Yeah, so, it's like Anthony said, minority groups like that, particularly minority groups that feel they are losing power, they use rage because rage brings in numbers, and rage brings in activism. It brings in activity, and it brings in money, right? So even though it's not necessarily driven by your everyday, church goers, there are people who are very conscious of how they communicate and how that affects the power of the groups that they belong to.
Evil Steve Bannon, why did you decide to join us today? I think you said in the chat you wanted to dunk on Mateo. Now's your chance. Assuming we can hear
Yeah, but all of those subjects are like long gone, and it's kind of weird to just drag them all back up to rub his face in it.
That's fair.
Rub away.
Rub me out.
Oh, baby.
Watch it, he's got a gun.
No, I actually don't, believe it or not. Like, everyone thinks I'm a gun owner because of my arguments, but I really don't even own one.
I do.
Yeah, I'm probably going to own a gun before Mateo
See, most
does.
people who are at odds with me, they tend to own guns. It's insane.
Well, remember, it's the scary big black gun, not the tiny pistol.
True. Yeah, I mean, and you can go as far back as muskets. They're always going to be a gun supporter in a way. So yeah, sure. Actually,
Although
that does
I
go to my point, though. If it's pistols more often, I mean, those are the bad ones. Those are the ones that are actually, like, pistols, it's a Skinnerd line, so it's not like a real, but a handgun ain't for killing, but ain't no good for nothing else. And it's true.
Yeah.
Same thing with Biggie Smalls. Used to have the Trey Deuce and the Goose in my and the Deuce in my Bubble Goose. Like, those things are concealable. That's what makes them so deadly. Like, the big scary rifles, you're gonna get killed by a cop most of the time carrying that around public. But a pistol, you can get inside of a government building with, actually not these days. I got metal detectors, but
oh, son of a bitch.
Things more dangerous.
Sorry, guys. I accidentally switched channels.
Nikki, I muted you. Your dog was barking.
Sorry,
I'm muting your too. Sorry. Okay. Nikki, is good? We're good? All right, awesome.
No.
Okay. Could you...
The dog has opinions.
Yourself? Until the dog stops.
Yes. Yes, I will. Mm-hmm.
Problems with live video, everybody. Live, everybody. Oh, everything's jacked up. What the? Oh
my God.
The
Why
entire
is there a dog in every
Twitch.
stream?
Matt's trying to talk. Matt's trying to talk, just to let you know.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought it was his background. My bad. Okay, I gotta fix the stuff, so I'm gonna put myself on mute.
A dog, Anthony? Really, I really want you to sit there and think about that for a second.
I know you don't have a dog. I thought it was coming from your outsider.
Yeah. Whatever. Excuses.
Anyways, I gotta fix the stream. I gotta fix the stream, so I'm going AFK.
Anyways, I believe what Mateo is trying to say here is that we should ban handguns.
I'm not saying that, but if these people want to be logically coherent and seen as
it was literally
honest,
see that
it's a joke. I'm gonna run with it. No, it's a joke. I'm gonna run with it because I got a point.
Like having this whole delay thing is that had I said it like right after you said that, it would be kind of funny. But then it's like 5 minutes later, or a half hour later, or an hour later, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Sorry, I'm getting
this is
hit with text right now, and I'm bad at
so
juggling.
Apparently, speaking of getting hit by text, apparently my number got compromised. And I'm getting like some ridiculous spam texts now, which I didn't.
I get calls from Haiti every day. It's insane. It's Haiti every day.
So this one
girl got Elon Musk's old telephone number. And Elon Musk has apparently been giving his old number out to people who ask him for a number just so they don't bother him on his real one.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Okay, so here's the text I just got. Time to stay home and enjoy some sex, Dylan. Turn into a beast with this revolutionary free trick. Girls are going to be crazy about you.
Go on.
Boyfriends hate this. Learn how you got your chick with just one trick.
Thank you, text message from a random number I don't know. I'm definitely going to click on that link you sent and learn how to have sex at 28 years old.
Speaking of which, I also have a really good link for you if you want to download some more RAM for your computer.
I'll download as much RAM as I can get, man. Just send me all the links.
Ram it.
Downloadmoreram.com. You can download 4 RAM, 4
Ram
gigs,
it in, baby.
8 gigs, 16.
Ram it
They
so
might even
good.
have 32 at this point.
See, I've been uploading too much RAM, and I need to get some back now.
Happens to
Yeah.
the best of us.
Just in case someone out there doesn't know, we're joking. Don't ever click or do anything that says download RAM.
I'm not.
RAM is hardware.
There was actually a company that tried selling software RAM that did literally nothing,
Intel
but
has
charged
something called,
people
like,
$60.
ooh.
And when
Intel
the
or
government
Optane.
cracked down on them, the settlement was they had to refund $10 to everyone who bought their software.
Sounds like that Red Bull class action lawsuit that I joined in fraudulently.
What?
What was the Red Bull?
Don't say that on air.
Did
I
it
got a
not
free
give
Red
you
Bull.
wings?
I don't know. Something happened where they had to give anyone who claimed to be wronged a free Red Bull. So I was like, yeah, give me a Red Bull.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
well
forget
now
what it was. I could probably look it up.
Wait,
It
what?
did not turn me into a cartoon character. I could not fly, and I still sucked at sports.
you're
I
going to be
need
sued
one
for
more for free.
fraud for like $3,000 because that was the cost of that Red Bull.
Fuck yeah. That's the cost of my hopes and dreams being dashed, people.
Yeah, that's a dime, if that.
Hey guys, this is actually really good. Matt, you were joking that the reason was because it does not give you wings, but apparently that's actually it.
Oh my god.
I'm not even kidding. I'm going to send it to the group. This is gold.
Oh.
It was in
I like
2015.
I like how the settlement is literally just them giving them more of their fake wing cure.
Yeah, yeah, they're just honest about it now. They're like, hey, I won't give you wings, man. More just like diabetes.
Is that
I
why
was-
they took away all those commercials?
I was trying to talk while muted. That was the problem.
Oh yeah,
wings.
I actually saw your video. Your lips kept moving, and I'm like, I think he's trying to say something. I just let him go.
Yep. So I have a question for the audience, and I want to get their experiences. What have been some of your all's experience with outrage culture online? Every one of us on the panel have experienced it to some degree, but we know that other people's had different experiences. So feel free to drop that in the chat or join us on air. Who do we lose, Dylan?
See.
Ah.
I mean, it might be a good time to kind of wrap it up. I think, unless actually, if someone wants to go further, just do it.
No, I think it is a good time to wrap it up, but I do want to give the chat a little bit of time to respond, and then if nothing, having a million people get up in arms because I mocked a dying cancer okay, sure. Cancel culture is annoying for celebrities, but it's downright scared for individuals. What do you mean, Razorfold?
Probably scary, not scared.
Yeah. What do you mean, Razorfold? Are you talking about like somebody saying something online that's offensive and then getting fired, kind of thing?
I'm guessing celebrities have recourse, or at least they have money, and that can at least get you somewhere. But like, you get your job fired, and everyone only knows you for this one singular event. Like, at least Mel Gibson technically has more things known about him than is just a raging alcoholic anti-Semite.
Okay, I did understand
Jussie
your question.
Smollett is a good example.
Who? Oh,
Jussie Smollett. or Smollett. I'm not even trying to say it.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
Yeah,
I'd never
he's
heard
a
of
good
him
example of
before.
actually someone who probably won't recover. Actually, now that I think of it,
yeah.
everyone
I
got
don't think
really
he will.
mad because they hopped on that outrage train, and then they're like, "Whoa, hey, I can't even play this one off. This is totally blatant. Screw you, Jesse Smollett. It's your fault.
Yeah.
Look what you made me do, Jesse."
All right,
But
everybody.
that is a hilarious. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it. Finish your point. And I'll sign us
That
off.
is a hilarious story, though, when you think about it. In the middle of Chicago, dudes with MAGA hats screaming, "This is MAGA country." I mean, it's just such
At
a
2 a.m.
bad lie. 2 a.m. Yeah, like that's what happens in Chicago, man. The people, they walk around with MAGA hats because they want to get beat up and shot. Like, there are certain places in America you just can't go with that. And this Chicago is not exactly a welcoming area for that. Not so
And
much
like,
so that they'll be
didn't he
confident beating up
say it
someone and
was
screaming.
like freezing cold and they weren't even wearing jackets or anything? They're
Something
just
like that.
walking around with a
There's a
mace in
lot
their
of really,
hands.
really weird pieces of information.
Well, everybody, I am so glad that you did join us today. Thank you all so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts and opinions on outrage culture and being on the show with us. We greatly appreciate it. If you did like what you heard, and I'm sure that you did since you stayed with us throughout, go ahead and hit that follow button and like, comment, and subscribe on the podcast itself, either on Facebook, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your own podcast. And like always, keep your head up through the political storm.
So can we leave this open for a bit and just let